My name is Robert. I'm 77 years old. And there's something I saw once that I never told anyone about. Not my wife. Not my children. Not even the person it would have mattered most to. I've carried it quietly for 43 years now. And I think that silence changed more than I understood at the time. I'm not sure why I'm saying this now. Maybe because I've been thinking about it more lately. Maybe because I can feel time differently than I used to. Or maybe because I finally understand what I was really doing when I decided to say nothing. I don't know if keeping it to myself was the right choice. But I know it was a choice. And I know what it cost. I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. The kind of place where everyone knew your name, your family, your business. My father worked at the rail yard. My mother kept house and watched the neighborhood from our front porch. I had one brother. His name was Daniel. He was 3 years older than me. Quieter. Thoughtful in a way I wasn't. He read a lot. Spent time alone. Our father didn't really understand him, but our mother did. She'd leave him be when he needed it. Daniel and I weren't especially close growing up. Not in the way some brothers are. But we weren't distant either. We just existed in parallel. He had his world. I had mine. When I was 21, I got married. Moved 2 towns over. Started working at a printing company. Daniel stayed home for a while, then got a job at the library. He lived in a small apartment above the hardware store on Main Street. We'd see each other at holidays. Sometimes for Sunday dinners at our parents' house. We'd talk, but not about anything that mattered. Just surface things. Work. Weather. The Steelers. That was enough, I thought. In the summer of 1981, I came back to town to help my father with something. I don't even remember what it was now. Fixing a fence, maybe. Or clearing out the garage. It was a Saturday. Hot. The kind of heat that made you feel slow. I finished up around 4 in the afternoon and decided to walk through town before heading home. I liked doing that sometimes. Seeing the old places. The diner. The church. The park where we used to play as kids. I was walking past the movie theater when I saw Daniel. He was standing on the sidewalk. With someone. Another man. They were talking. Close. Not touching, but close in a way that felt private. I stopped. I don't know why I stopped. I should have kept walking. But I didn't. I stood there, half hidden by the corner of the building, and I watched. Daniel said something. The other man smiled. Then Daniel smiled too. It was a smile I'd never seen on his face before. Open. Easy. Like he just exhaled after holding his breath for a long time. And then the man reached out and touched Daniel's arm. Just briefly. Just his hand on his forearm for a second or two. But the way Daniel looked at him when he did it. I knew. I understood what I was seeing. And I felt something I didn't expect. Fear. Not for me. For him. Because I knew what that meant in a town like ours. In a family like ours. In a time like that. I turned around and walked back to my car. I didn't say hello. I didn't wave. I just left. I drove home and I didn't tell anyone. Not my wife. Not my parents. I told myself it wasn't my business. That it was his life. That he'd tell me if he wanted me to know. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of what it would mean to acknowledge it. Afraid of what I'd have to say. Afraid of the conversation I didn't know how to have. So I said nothing. And I waited for him to bring it up. He never did. A few months later, Thanksgiving came around. The whole family gathered at my parents' house like we always did. Daniel was there. Quiet, like usual. He helped set the table. He passed the potatoes. He asked me how work was going. I looked at him across that table and I thought about what I'd seen. I thought about asking him. Privately. Later. Just the two of us. But I didn't. I told myself it wasn't the right time. And then Christmas came. And then Easter. And then another summer. And I kept waiting. But I never asked. In 1983, Daniel moved. He told us he got a job in Pittsburgh. Something at a university library. Better pay. Better opportunity. We had a small goodbye dinner. My mother cried a little. My father shook his hand and told him to call if he needed anything. I hugged him at the door and said, "Take care of yourself." He looked at me for a second longer than usual, like he was waiting for me to say something else. But I didn't. And then he left. He called home every few weeks after that. Talked to our mother mostly. She'd fill us in. He was doing well. He liked the city. He'd made some friends. I'd talk to him sometimes when I was visiting my parents and he happened to call. We'd chat for a few minutes. Surface things again. Always surface things. I wanted to ask him if he was happy. If he was safe. But I didn't know how to start that conversation after so much time had passed. So I kept waiting. In 1987, my mother called me early one morning. She said Daniel was sick. She didn't say what kind of sick at first. Just that he was in the hospital. That he wanted us to come see him. I knew. Even before she said it, I knew. We drove to Pittsburgh the next day. My wife stayed home with the kids. It was just me and my parents. The hospital was big. Sterile. It smelled like disinfectant and something else I couldn't name. Daniel was in a room on the 4th floor. He looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner. Tired in a way that wasn't just physical. My mother sat beside him and held his hand. My father stood near the window, stiff and silent. I stood at the foot of the bed. Daniel looked at me and smiled a little. "Hey, Bobby." That's what he used to call me when we were kids. "Hey," I said. We didn't talk about why he was there. Not directly. My mother asked if he was comfortable. If the nurses were treating him well. If he needed anything. He said he was fine. But he wasn't fine. I visited him 3 more times over the next 2 months. Each time, he looked a little worse. A little further away. On the last visit, it was just the 2 of us. My parents had gone down to the cafeteria. Daniel was awake, but barely. His eyes were half closed. His breathing was shallow. I sat in the chair next to him and I didn't say anything for a long time. And then finally I said, "I'm sorry." He opened his eyes a little and looked at me. "For what?" he asked. His voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear him. I wanted to say it then. I wanted to tell him that I saw him that day outside the theater. That I knew. That I should have said something. That I should have asked. That I should have let him know it was okay. That he didn't have to carry it alone. But I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. So I just said, "For not being around more." He nodded slowly. "It's okay." And then he closed his eyes again. He died 4 days later. We buried him back home, in the cemetery behind the church where we used to go on Sundays. There was a small service. My parents. A few cousins. Some people from town who remembered him. No one from Pittsburgh came. No one who really knew him. Script, Part 3. It's been 43 years since Daniel died. And I think about that day outside the theater all the time. Not every day. But often enough. I think about the way he smiled at that man. The way his whole face changed. I think about the fact that I never told him I saw it. I never let him know that I knew. I never gave him the chance to tell me himself. For a long time, I told myself I was respecting his privacy. That I was letting him live his life on his own terms. But the truth is, I was protecting myself. I was afraid of the discomfort. The awkwardness. The questions I didn't know how to ask. I was afraid of what it would mean to acknowledge something that our family, our town, our world at that time didn't have language for. Or didn't want to have language for. So I stayed silent. And I let him stay silent too. I don't know if it would have changed anything. Maybe he would have told me. Maybe he wouldn't have made him any less alone in the end. But I think it might have. I think he might have known that he didn't have to carry it all by himself. That there was at least one person who saw him. Who knew. Who didn't turn away. After he died, I found out a few things. Not much. Just fragments. My mother told me, years later, that Daniel had called her once from Pittsburgh. Late at night. He'd been crying. He told her he was scared. That he didn't know what was going to happen. She said she didn't know what to say to him. She told him she loved him. That we all did. But she didn't ask him what he was scared of. She didn't ask who he was with, if there was anyone taking care of him. She just said she loved him and then they hung up. I also learned, much later, that there had been someone. A man named David. He'd been with Daniel in Pittsburgh. For a few years, at least. I don't know what happened to him. If he was there at the end. If he went to the hospital. If he knew about us. I don't even know his last name. I think about him sometimes. I think about the fact that he probably loved my brother. And that my brother probably loved him. And that none of us ever met him. That he was erased from the story we told ourselves about Daniel's life. Not on purpose, maybe. But erased all the same. I'm 77 now. My wife passed 2 years ago. My kids live in different states. I see them a few times a year. I spend a lot of time alone. And in that alone time, I think about all the things I didn't say. Not just to Daniel. To a lot of people. But Daniel's the one I think about most. I don't know if he needed me to say something. Maybe he was fine carrying it quietly. Maybe that was his choice. But I think he deserved to know that I saw him. That I saw him happy for just a moment, on a summer afternoon in 1981. And that I should have told him that mattered to me. That he mattered to me. Not in some vague, brotherly way, but in a real way. In a way that would have required me to be uncomfortable. To not know what to say. To stumble through it anyway. I think about the man he was with that day. I wonder if Daniel ever smiled at him like that again. I hope he did. I hope there were more moments like that. I hope he wasn't alone, even when it felt like he was. There's no lesson here. No moral. Just the truth of what I didn't do. And the weight of knowing that silence, even kind silence, even well-intentioned silence, still takes up space. It still says something. If you're still here, thank you for listening. I don't know why I needed to say this out loud. Maybe just to finally admit it. That I saw something. And I never told him. And I wish I had.